Hey guys, tonight we dive into the darkest corners of ancient Rome, where justice wasn't just harsh, it was a brutal spectacle designed to terrify. From the damp cells of the Tullianum to the blood-soaked sands of the Colosseum, this story is disturbing, fascinating, and utterly brutal, a defining moment in understanding how civilization dealt with those who broke its laws. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from, and what you think about how far we've come from these ancient punishments. Now, let's begin. The cold seeps through the stone floor beneath you, and as your eyes slowly adjust to the darkness, you realize where you are, the Tullianum, Rome's most feared prison. The year is 50 CE, and you find yourself in the bowels of the Roman Forum, in a place where daylight is just a memory and hope has long since abandoned those who enter. The air is thick, with the smell of human misery, unwashed bodies, fierce sweat, and something else. Something that speaks of death and decay. You can hear water dripping somewhere in the darkness. Drip, drip, drip. A maddening rhythm that marks time in this place where time has no meaning. The walls around you are rough-hewn stone, carved directly from the living rock of the Capitoline Hill. They say this prison is older than Rome itself, that the Sabine kings used it to break their enemies. Now it's your turn to be broken. Above you, through the single hole in the ceiling, the only entrance to this lower chamber, you can hear the muffled sounds of Roman life, continuing as if your world hasn't just ended. Merchants hawking their wares, children laughing, the clatter of cartwheels on stone. But down here, in what the Romans call the career, there is only darkness and the slow, inexorable approach of whatever punishment awaits you. You shift slightly, and the chains around your wrists clank against the stone. The iron has already rubbed your skin raw, and you've only been here. How long? Hours? Days? It's impossible to tell. Time moves differently in the darkness. Sometimes you think you can hear other prisoners breathing in the corners of the cell. But when you call out, only your own voice echoes back, distorted and strange. The Roman justice system, you're beginning to understand, isn't about rehabilitation. It's about terror, pure, systematic terror designed to keep the massive population of Rome in line. In a city of over 1 million souls, slaves, freedmen, citizens, and foreigners all pressed together in a chaotic urban sprawl, only fear keeps order. And the Romans have perfected fear as a tool of governance. You think back to your trial, if you can even call it that. The magistrate, draped in his toga praetexta with its purple border marking his rank, had barely looked at you. To him, you were just another criminal, another example to be made. The Roman legal system, for all its later reputation for jurisprudence and careful procedure, is at this moment in history still rough, still brutal, still very much about power, rather than justice. The charges against you, well, they hardly matter now. Perhaps you stole bread to feed your family, perhaps you struck a citizen in anger, perhaps you were simply in the wrong place at the wrong time, or perhaps, and this thought makes your blood run cold, perhaps you committed one of the truly unforgivable crimes: parricide, treason, sacrilege. The Romans have special punishments for those, punishments that make simple execution seem like mercy. A rat scurries across your foot, and you barely flinch. You're already becoming numb to the small horrors of this place. But you know the real horrors are yet to come. In Rome, the punishment must fit not just the crime, but the criminal. Are you a citizen? Your punishments will be somewhat more dignified. A quick beheading perhaps, if you're lucky. But if you're a slave, a foreigner, a person of no status, the Romans have imagination when it comes to making examples of the lowly. You've heard the stories whispered in the taverns and markets of the Suburra. Crucifixion, where men hang for days, their bodies slowly failing as crowds gather to watch and mock. Damnatio ad bestias, condemned to the beasts, where criminals are torn apart by wild animals for the entertainment of the masses. The mines, where men disappear into holes in the earth and never emerge, working until their bodies simply give out in the darkness. But perhaps worst of all is the uncertainty. Roman justice isn't just about punishment. It's about the anticipation of punishment, the waiting, the not knowing. Will you die tomorrow? Next week? Will they forget about you down here, leave you to slowly waste away in the darkness, or will they drag you up those stone steps into the blinding light of day, only to face something worse than this darkness? The classification of criminals in Rome is precise, methodical. At the top are the honest yours, the honest ones, the upper classes, who even in crime maintain certain privileges. They might face exile, loss of property, or at worst, a dignified death by sword. But you're one of the humiliors, the humbled ones, the vast mass of humanity that keeps Rome running but holds no real value in the eyes of the law. For you, the law shows no mercy. You can hear footsteps above now, the measured tread of hobnailed boots on stone. Guards, your heart begins to race, though you try to control it. Is this it? Is your time come? The footsteps pause directly above the opening to your cell, and you hold your breath. A moment passes, then another, then the footsteps move on, and you're left once again with just the dripping water and the darkness dotting. This place, you have time to think about the Roman conception of justice. It's not about balance or fairness as later ages might understand it. It's about maintenance of order, about showing the populace what happens to those who step out of line. Every punishment is a performance, every execution a morality play written in blood and suffering. The message is clear. This is what happens when you challenge the order of things. This is what happens when you forget your place. The Romans have a saying, dura lex, slex. The law is harsh, but it is the law. But sitting here in the darkness of the Tullianum, you're beginning to understand that the harshness isn't a flaw in the system. It's the entire point. In a world without modern policing, without surveillance cameras or computer databases, fear is the only thing that keeps a million people from tearing each other apart. And so they've built a system of graduated horrors for minor thefts, a flogging in the forum, your back laid open by the flagellum with its leather thongs and metal weights, for assault on a citizen, perhaps branding, your forehead forever marked with the letter F for fugitivist, runaway, or for thief. The Romans love their brands. They're permanent reminders of transgression that follow a man for life. But for serious crimes, they've reached into the darkest corners of human imagination. You've seen crucifixions along the Appian Way, bodies hanging like grotesque fruit from wooden crosses, ravens pecking at eyes while the crucified still lived. You've heard the screams from the arena as condemned men face lions, bears, wild bulls. You've smelled the smoke from the pyres where arsonists burn. The punishment fitting the crime in the most literal sense. The water continues to drip, 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 drip. Somewhere in the darkness, you think you hear someone crying, but it might just be the wind finding its way through cracks in the ancient stone, or it might be your own voice. It's hard to tell anymore. The darkness has a way of turning you inside out, making you uncertain of what's real and what's just the fevered imaginings of a mind. Under extreme stress, you shift again, trying to find a position where the chains don't cut quite so deeply. The straw beneath you is damp and foul, but it's better than bare stone, small mercies. In this place, you learn to be grateful for small mercies, a rat that doesn't bite, a guard who doesn't spit on you through the ceiling hole, an extra crust of moldy bread thrown down like you're an animal in a pit, because that's what you are now. Not a person, but an example waiting to happen. Your individuality, your personal story, your reasons and justifications, none of that matters. You're just a body to be used in the great theater of Roman justice, a prop in a play designed to keep the masses in line. Whether you're guilty or innocent is almost beside the point. What matters is that your suffering serves a purpose, that your pain becomes a lesson for others. The magistrates who condemned you, they sleep soundly in their villas on the Palatine Hill, confident that the system works, and in its brutal way. It does work. Rome maintains order over an empire stretching from Britain to Syria, from the Rhine to the Sahara, and it does so not through kindness or understanding, but through the calculated application of terror. You close your eyes, though it makes little difference in the absolute darkness of the Tullianum. Tomorrow, or the next day, or next week, they'll come for you, they'll drag you up into the light, and your real suffering will begin. But for now, you wait, and you listen to the water drip, and you try not to think about what's coming, because in Rome, justice isn't blind. It sees everything, your status, your citizenship, your value to the state, and it judges accordingly. The punishment that awaits you has been carefully calibrated to your crime and your station, designed not just to punish you, but to send a message to everyone who might think of following in your footsteps. As you drift in and out of a fitful doze, you can almost see them, the crowds that will gather to watch your punishment. Some will come for entertainment, treating your agony like a show. Others will come to learn, to see what fate awaits those who break Roman law and a few, perhaps, will come out of sympathy, though they'll be careful not to show it openly. In Rome, compassion for criminals can be dangerous. The darkness presses in around you, heavy and suffocating. But you're beginning to understand that this is just the antechamber to suffering. The Romans have turned punishment into an art form, a carefully orchestrated display of state power, and you're about to become their canvas, painted in pain and blood for all to see. Somewhere above, Rome continues its eternal bustle. The senators debate in the curia, the merchants trade in the forums, the slaves carry water from the aqueducts. Life goes on. But down here in the darkness of the career, time stands still. There is only you and the chains and the terrible certainty that whatever comes next will be worse than this dot, and so you wait, and you listen to the water drip, and you try to prepare yourself for horrors you can't even imagine. Because in Rome, imagination is the only limit to human cruelty, and the Romans have very active imaginations indeed. The sound of metal scraping against stone jolts you from your restless half-sleep. Above you, the heavy wooden cover of the Tullianum is being pulled aside, and for the first time in days, weeks, you see light. It hurts. The pale morning sun filtering down through the opening might as well be fire pressed against your eyes. You squint, raising a chained hand to shield yourself as a rope drops down into your cell. Climb, comes the gruff command from above. The voice is bored. Routine. To the guards, you're just another task in their daily rounds. No different from feeding the animals in the vivarium or cleaning the blood from the arena sand. You grasp the rope with shaking hands, your muscles protesting after so long and cramped. Inactivity. The climb is agony, but somehow you manage it, emerging into a world that seems impossibly bright and loud after the silence of the pit. The guard who hauled you up doesn't even look at you properly. He's already turning away, expecting you to follow. Your legs barely hold you, but you stumble after him, blinking in the morning light. Rome spreads out before you as you're led from the prison. A city of marble and squalor, grandeur and brutality, all pressed together in a chaotic mass of humanity. The forum bustles with early morning activity. Senators in their white togas with purple stripes make their way to the curia. Slaves hurry past carrying amphorae of wine and oil, and everyone carefully avoids looking at you, marked, as you are by chains and the particular smell of the condemned. You're being led to the praetor's tribunal, where your fate will be formally pronounced. Not decided. That was done days ago, but Roman law loves its ceremonies, its public displays. Everything must be done properly according to the ancient forms, the 12 tables. Those bronze tablets that have governed Roman law for 500 years demand it. See and use vocet, itio. If he summons you to court, you must go. Though in your chains, you hardly have a choice. The concept of an eye for an eye, what the Romans call lex talionis, governs much there. Thinking about justice. If you kill, you die. If you steal, you repay. If you injure, you suffer injury. It's simple, brutal, and effective. But the Romans have refined this ancient principle, added layers of complexity that take into account not just what you did, but who you are and who you did it to. A citizen who strikes another citizen might face a fine. A slave who strikes a citizen faces death, the same action, but completely different consequences. The Romans see nothing unjust in this. To them, it's the natural order of things. Some men are simply worth more than others in the eyes of the law. It's a hierarchy written in blood and tradition, stretching back to Romulus himself. As you're led through the forum, past the rostra, where orators harangue the crowds, past the temples where priests perform their morning sacrifices, you begin to see other prisoners being brought for judgment. Some walk proudly, citizens who know their status will protect them from the worst. Others shuffle in chains like you, their faces already bearing the hollow look of the condemned. And some have to be dragged, their spirits already broken, by whatever interrogations they've endured. Because that's another thing about Roman justice. The truth must be extracted, one way or another. For citizens, an oath might suffice. Their word, given before the gods, carries weight. But for slaves and foreigners, only pain produces truth. The Romans believe this absolutely. Torture isn't cruelty to them, it's simply the most reliable way to get honest testimony from those whose words otherwise can't be trusted. You've heard the screams from the questioning chambers, echoing through the stone corridors of the prison. The Equuleus, that wooden frame they call the little horse, where men are stretched until joints pop and sinews tear. The hot irons that sear flesh and loosen tongues, the simple, Effective horror of fingernails slowly pulled out one by one, all perfectly legal, all part of the process of Roman justice. The praetor's tribunal looms before you now, a raised platform in the midst of the forum's chaos. The praetor himself sits in his cruel chair, the symbol of his imperium, his power, over life and death. He's a younger man, ambitious, using his year as praetor to make a name for himself before moving on to greater things. Consul, perhaps, or governor of some rich province. Your suffering is just a stepping stone in his career. The crowd has begun to gather. Romans love their public spectacles, and the pronouncement of sentences is free entertainment. Mothers hold their children up to see, teaching them early what happens to those who break the law. Merchants pause in their trading to watch. Even slaves, when their masters permit, crane their necks to see the proceedings. You're not a person to them anymore. You're a lesson, a cautionary tale in flesh and bone. The charge is read out in formal Latin, the ancient language of law and ceremony. The words wash over you, incomprehensible in their legal complexity. But the meaning is clear enough. You have transgressed. You have violated the peace of Rome, and now you must pay. The praetor doesn't look at you as the charges are. Read. His eyes scan the crowd, judging their mood, their appetite for blood. A good magistrate knows how to read the mob, knows how to give them just enough violence to satisfy without seeming either weak or unnecessarily cruel. Public spectacle as deterrent. This is the cornerstone of Roman criminal justice. Every punishment must be visible, memorable, educational. It's not enough that you suffer. You must suffer where everyone can see, where mothers can point and tell their children, see, this is what happens when you steal, when you lie, when you forget your place. Your agony becomes a teaching tool, your death a moral lesson. The praetor raises his hand for silence, and the crowd stills. This is the moment. This is when you learn your fate. Will it be the cross, the beasts, the flames, or perhaps, if the gods show mercy, merely exile, a civil death that casts you out from Rome forever? You try to read his face, but it's impassive, schooled in the traditional Roman gravitas. Whatever he feels about sending you to your death, he doesn't show it. The prisoner, he begins, his voice carrying across the forum with practiced ease, has been found guilty of, and here he lists your crimes, real or imagined, proven or merely suspected. In Roman law, suspicion is often enough, especially for those without powerful patrons to speak for them. The magistrate's power is nearly absolute. He can condemn or acquit based on his interpretation of the law, his reading of the omens, or simply his mood that morning. You think about the different levels of punishment available to him. For citizens, real citizens, not just residents of Rome, but those with full civic rights, the options are limited by tradition and law. Exile, loss of property, infamia that strips them of their good name and social standing. Only for the most serious crimes, treason, parricide, sacrilege, do citizens face death. And even then, it's usually by sword, quick and relatively dignified. But for the rest, for slaves, foreigners, the poor who may technically be citizens, but lack the protection of powerful families, the menu of horrors is extensive. Crucifixion, that slow agony that can last days. The beasts, where you're torn apart. For the amusement of the crowd, the mines, where you disappear into darkness and never emerge. Burning alive, reserved for arsonists and those who threaten the very fabric of Roman order. The praetor is still speaking, but his words fade into background noise as you contemplate the ingenuity of Roman cruelty. They've had centuries to perfect their methods, to find new ways to make examples of those who challenge their authority. Every emperor adds his own innovations. Caligula, dead now these 10 years, had been particularly creative, inventing new tortures for his own amusement. Claudius, the current emperor, is more traditional, but tradition in Rome includes plenty of scope for horror, and therefore, the praetor's voice cuts through your reverie. In accordance with the ancient laws of our fathers and the will of the Senate and people of Rome. He pauses, savoring the moment. The crowd leans forward. You hold your breath. The prisoner is condemned to, but before he can finish, there's a commotion at the edge of the crowd. A woman pushes through, your wife perhaps, or mother, or sister. She's weeping, calling out for mercy, offering to pay a fine, to take your place, anything. The guards move to restrain her, but the praetor raises a hand. He looks at her with something that might be pity or might be annoyance. It's hard to tell. Woman, he says, the law is the law. What would Rome be if every criminal's family could buy their freedom with tears? We would drowning in chaos within a day. He turns back to you. The prisoner shows disrespect for Roman justice by allowing such displays. Let the punishment reflect this additional offense. Your heart sinks. In trying to save you, she's only made things worse. Roman magistrates have wide discretion in sentencing, and insulting the dignity of the court is a serious matter. Whatever he was planning before, it will be harsher now. The crowd murmurs appreciatively. They came for a show, and they're getting one. Damnatio ad bestias. The praetor pronounces finally, condemned to the beasts. The crowd erupts in approval. It's a popular sentence, providing excellent entertainment at the next games. You'll be torn apart by lions or bears or wild bulls while thousands cheer. Your death will be both punishment and performance, justice and jubilation rolled into one. As the guards move to take you away, you catch a glimpse of the woman who tried to save you being dragged off as well. Interfering with justice is a crime in itself. She won't face the beasts. Romans rarely condemn women to that particular fate, but there are other punishments waiting for her, flogging perhaps, or exile, or slavery in some distant corner of the empire. Roman justice doesn't just punish the criminal. It reaches out to touch anyone who challenges its authority. You're led away from the tribunal, back toward the prison where you'll wait for the next games. Could be days, could be weeks. The Roman calendar is packed with festivals and celebrations, many of which include gladiatorial contests and beast hunts. You'll be saved for one of these occasions. Your death timed to provide maximum entertainment value. As you'll march through the streets, you pass a group of slaves carrying lumber. They don't look at you directly. That would be dangerous. But you can see the fear in their hunched shoulders, their carefully averted eyes. This is what Roman justice is really about. Not your individual punishment, but the message your punishment says to everyone else: stay in line, know your place, accept your lot, or end up like this wretch being led to the beasts. The magistrate's absolute power, you realize, isn't a flaw in the system. It's the system's greatest strength. Swift, arbitrary, terrifying justice that can strike anyone at any time. No lengthy appeals, no technicalities, no escape on procedural grounds. Just the word of a magistrate and a sentence carried out for all to see. It keeps 1 million people in line more effectively than any police force ever could. Back in your cell, a different one this time, closer to the surface where you can hear the roar of the crowd. From the nearby amphitheater, you have time to contemplate the brutal reality of Roman law. It's not about rehabilitation or even really about punishment in the individual sense. It's about maintenance of order through calculated terror, about showing everyone what happens when you step out of line. The Romans have a genius for organization, for taking simple concepts and building complex systems around them. Their law is no different from the basic principle of retribution. They've constructed an elaborate hierarchy of suffering, each punishment carefully calibrated to the crime and the criminal. It's horrific, but it's also brilliantly effective. Rome rules the world not through kindness, but through the certainty that defiance brings death. And not just any death, but death as public spectacle. As night falls and you listen to the sounds of the city settling into sleep, you know that somewhere out there, the beast keepers are tending their charges. Lions captured in the arenas of North Africa, bears from the forest of Germania, wild bulls from the plains of Hispania, all waiting, like you, for the day of the games, all part of the great machinery of Roman justice, where your death becomes entertainment and entertainment reinforces the power of the state. Tomorrow, they'll probably move you again, closer to the arena. You'll hear the beasts roaring in their cages, smell the blood-soaked sand of the killing floor. But tonight, in this moment between sentence and execution, you finally understand the brutal reality of Roman law. It's not personal. It's not even really about you. You're just a prop in a play that's been running for centuries. A brief player in the eternal drama of Roman power, and soon, very soon, your part will be over. The new cell is different from the Tullianum's depths. Here, you're not alone. The holding area beneath the amphitheater is crowded with the condemned, dozens of men, and a few women, all waiting their turn in the arena. The air is thick with fierce sweat and the acrid stench of human waste. No one bothers to clean these cells. Why waste effort on those who will be dead within days? In the dim light filtering through the barred windows, you can see your fellow prisoners. Most bear the marks of their crimes and punishments. That man there, his forehead branded with 3 letters, for thief. The scar is still fresh, still weeping pus where the hot iron seared flesh and muscle down to bone. He caught stealing bread. He tells anyone who will listen, just bread. His children were starving. But hunger is no defense in Roman law. You learn their stories in fragments, whispered in the dark hours before dawn when sleep refuses to come. The young man huddled in the corner, barely more than a boy, took fruit from the citizen's garden. First offense, but he ran when caught. Flight implies guilt in Roman eyes, transforms a minor theft into something worse. He should have submitted to judgment immediately, accepted his flogging. Now he faces the beast, started with a beating. An older prisoner explains, his voice hoarse from screaming during his interrogation. That's how it always starts for us common folk. The vigils catch you, and if you're lucky, they just beat you bloody right there in the street. Teaches a lesson to everyone watching. He shifts, wincing at some hidden injury. But if you fight back, if you run, if you dare raise a hand to defend yourself, then you're not just a thief, you're a rebel, and Rome knows what to do with rebels. The hierarchy of punishment for theft is precise, methodical. First offense, flogging. The flagellum tears skin from muscle, leaves scars that mark you forever. As a criminal, second offense, branding. That hot iron pressed against your forehead. The smell of your own flesh cooking. The knowledge that you'll wear your shame until death. Third offense, the mines or the arena. Rome has little patience for repeat offenders among the lower classes. But it's not just theft that brings common people to these cells. That woman in the corner, the one who rocks back and forth mumbling prayers to gods who've clearly abandoned her, she's here for adultery. Not the polite kind that happens in senatorial villas, where powerful men keep mistresses and powerful women take lovers. No, she's poor, and her husband accused her publicly. No trial needed, his word against hers, and his word wins. The double standard, she says when lucid, is what burns worst. The magistrate who condemned me, everyone knows he visits the brothels. But that's different. They say, he's a citizen, a man of standing. His pleasure doesn't threaten the social order. But me, a poor woman who sought comfort in another's arms, I'm a danger to Roman virtue. She laughs, but it's a sound devoid of humor. They'll stone me before the beasts. Traditional punishment for adulteresses who can't afford exile. You, listen to these stories and begin to understand the true nature of crime among Rome's common people. It's not organized villainy or grand conspiracies. It's desperation made manifest. Empty bellies that drive hands to steal. Anger at injustice that explodes into violence. Human desires that refuse to be constrained by law. And over it all, the grinding poverty that makes every day a struggle for survival. You know what I did. A man speaks up from the shadows. His voice is cultured, educated, unusual in these cells. I taught slaves to read. That's my crime. Spreading literacy among those meant to remain ignorant. He holds up hands twisted by torture. They broke every finger, one by one, to make sure I never held a stylus again, then condemned me to die anyway. Can't have slaves getting ideas, learning that they're human beings worthy of dignity. The crime of education. It seems absurd, but in Rome, knowledge is power, and power must be carefully controlled. Teaching slaves to read threatens the entire system. If slaves can read, they can communicate. If they can communicate, they can organize. If they can organize, well, Spartacus showed what organized slaves could do. And Rome has never forgotten that lesson. The stories continue through the night. A baker who watered his flour to make it stretch further. Fraud, punishable by flogging and confiscation of property. A tavern keeper who served wine after the legally mandated closing hour. Disrupting public order, branded and exiled. A young woman who performed abortions for prostitutes, interfering with potential Roman citizens, condemned to be burned alive. But it's the slaves who have it worst. That group huddled together near the latrine pit, all from the same household, all condemned for the same crime. Their master was murdered in his bed, and under Roman law, every slave in the house is guilty. Doesn't matter that they were asleep in their quarters. Doesn't matter that the killer was caught, another slave driven mad by years of abuse. The law is clear. When a master dies by violence, all his slaves die too. Collective punishment to ensure that every slave has a vested interest in their master's survival. 400 of us. Originally, one of them whispers, men, women, children, the old cook who could barely walk, the newborn in the slave quarters, all guilty in the eyes of the law. Most were crucified along the Appian Way, where the leftovers, save for the games. His voice breaks. My daughter was 6 years old. 6. They nailed her to a cross because our master beat one slave too many. You want to look away. But there's nowhere to look in these close quarters that doesn't reveal another tragedy. The Roman legal system, you're learning, isn't designed to distinguish between degrees of guilt or circumstances of crime. For the common people, for slaves especially, there are no mitigating factors. The law is a blunt instrument, smashing all equally. Want to know the real joke? The branded thief speaks again. I served in the legions, 15 years carrying a shield for Rome, fought in Germania, bled in Britannia, got my discharge with honor, but the land they promised never materialized. The pension disappeared into some senator's purse, so I stole bread to feed my children, and now I'm worth less than the lions they'll feed me too. This is the bitter truth about crime among the common people. Many are veterans, men who served Rome faithfully only to be discarded when no longer useful. Others are displaced farmers, driven from their land by the expansion of vast slave work estates, or craftsmen whose skills became worthless when cheap slave labor flooded the market. Crime, for them, isn't a choice. It's the last option before starvation. The guards make their rounds, tossing in the daily ration stale bread and water that taste of metal. You've learned not to fight for your share. The condemned have their own hierarchy, and new arrivals eat last. But tonight, the branded thief shares his portion with you. We're all brothers here, he says. Brothers in suffering. Rome made us equals in that, at least. You think about the escalating punishments for theft he described. How a hungry man takes an apple and receives 20 lashes. How desperation drives him to steal again, a loaf of bread this time, and the branding iron sears his flesh forever. How the brand makes honest work impossible. Who hires a marked thief, driving him to steal once more, and then the final theft, the one that brings him here, to wait for the beasts. It's a cycle designed to create the very criminals it punishes. The worst part, says the woman condemned for adultery, is how they make us complicit. Tomorrow, when they parade us through the streets to the arena, citizens will throw things. Rotten vegetables if we're lucky, stones if we're not, and we're expected to bear it silently. Any complaint, any curse, any sign of rebellion, and they'll make our deaths even worse. We have to participate in our own humiliation. She's right. Roman justice isn't content with simply killing criminals. They must be broken first, stripped of dignity and humanity. The elaborate rituals of execution serve multiple purposes: entertainment for the masses, reinforcement of social order, and complete degradation of the condemned. By the time you reach the arena, you're supposed to be grateful for death. A fight breaks out in the corner, two men grappling over some perceived slight. The guards don't intervene. Why bother? Let the condemned tear each other apart. Saves wear on the lines. It's only when one produces a sharpened shard of pottery, hidden weapon worth its weight in gold down here, that the guards act. They beat both men senseless with clubs, then drag them away. They'll be first in the arena tomorrow, wounds still. Fresh, easier prey for the beasts. See that? The educated man observes. Even here, facing death, we fight each other instead of our oppressors. It's the genius of Roman control. Keep the lower classes so desperate, so divided, that they can't unite against those who truly cause their suffering. We're all here because we're poor, because we challenge the system in ways small or large. But instead of recognizing our common cause, we squabble over bread crusts. His words carry a dangerous truth, the kind that got him condemned in the first place. But down here, facing death, what more can they do to him? The guards either don't understand his educated Latin or don't care. Tomorrow he'll be dead. His dangerous ideas dying with him. That's another function of the arena. It cleanses Rome of troublemakers, of those who might spread dissent. As dawn approaches, bringing you one day closer to your fate, you can hear activity in the arena above. The sound of hammers and saws as workers prepare their elaborate sets. Tomorrow's games will include a reenactment of a famous battle. Criminals, playing the role of Rome's enemies, dying in appropriately historical ways. Then the beast hunts, where professional hunters will display their skills. And finally, the main event, the damnatio ad bestias, where you and your fellow condemned will provide the climax to the day's entertainment. They're bringing in something special. A guard mentions to his companion, their voices carrying through the bars. Ship just arrived from Africa. Black maned lions, biggest anyone's seen, and a tiger from India. Cost a fortune, but the sponsor wants to make an impression. They laugh. Hope some of this lot puts up a fight. Crowds hate it when they just stand there and die. The branded thief spits, "Give me a sword and I'll show them a fight." But no, that would be too much like fairness. Can't have the condemned dying with dignity. Might make people think we're human, but you know that some will fight anyway. Desperation and the wild hope that somehow, impossibly, they might survive. You've heard the stories, criminals who killed the beasts sent against them, who won the crowd's favor and received mercy. It happens perhaps once in 100 executions, but that slim chance is enough to make some fight with savage fury, of course. If you do survive the first beast, they simply send in another, and another. The house always wins in the arena. The light grows stronger, painting the cell walls with the pale gold of early morning. Soon they'll come to prepare you for the show. You'll be washed. Can't have filthy criminals offending delicate sensibilities. You'll be given a tunic to wear, white to show the blood better. Some will have signs hung around their necks, proclaiming their crimes for all to read. Others will be dressed as mythological figures, dying in ways that echo ancient stories. The Romans loved their theatrical justice. "Remember us," the educated man says suddenly, addressing everyone in the cell. "When we die tomorrow, we vanish from history. No monuments, no records, no memory except as nameless criminals who provided an afternoon's entertainment. But we lived. We struggled. We were human beings, not just props in Rome's bloody theater. Remember that we existed." A murmur of agreement ripples through the cell. For a moment, in this place of despair, there's a flicker of solidarity. Thieves and slaves, adulterers and rebels, all united in their common humanity. It won't last, can't last, but for now, it's enough. A small defiance against a system designed to strip them of everything, including their sense of self. The door clangs open, guards enter with chains and shackles, preparing to sort the condemned for the day's events. Your time in this cell is ending. Soon you'll make that final walk from darkness into the blinding light of the arena. But you'll carry with you the stories of these common criminals, these ordinary people ground up by the machinery of Roman justice. Their small crimes and terrible punishments. Their humanity in the face of systematic dehumanization, because that's what crime among the common people really is in Rome. The failure to accept your place in the hierarchy, whether through theft born of hunger, violence born of desperation, or simply the audacity to think you deserve better. The common crime is aspiring beyond your station, and for that, Rome has devised 1,000 creative ways to remind you exactly where you belong. The guards separate you from those destined for crucifixion before dawn. You watch as they're led away, a line of condemned men shuffling in chains toward their fate. Some weep, some pray, some have passed beyond fear into a numb acceptance that's perhaps worse than terror. You're grateful, in a twisted way, that your death will come from beasts rather than the cross. At least it will be quicker, but you can't escape the sounds from your cell. You can hear the preparations beginning in the courtyard outside, the steady thud of hammers driving stakes into the ground, the rasp of wood being shaped and smoothed, the casual conversation of the execution squad as they ready their tools. For them, this is routine. Another day, another batch of criminals to hang on wood until they stop breathing. Festina lente. One of the soldiers jokes, "Hurry slowly." That's the motto for crucifixion, quick to nail them up, slow to let them die. His companions laugh. You've learned that the execution squads develop a dark humor to cope with their work. Either that, or they're selected for their natural cruelty, perhaps both. Through the barred window, you can see them bringing out the cross beams. Not full crosses, those are permanent fixtures along the roads outside Rome. Just the horizontal beams that the condemned will carry through the streets. Each one weighs perhaps 40 pounds, rough-hewn and soaked in the blood of previous victims. What is never washed? The stains are part of the punishment, part of the message. A commotion in the corridor draws your attention. They're bringing someone past your cell, a young man, perhaps 25, fighting every step. "I'm a citizen," he screams. "I demand a sword. I have rights." The guards ignore him. Whatever citizenship he claims, it's already been stripped away. Crucifixion is reserved for slaves, foreigners, and citizens who've committed the most heinous crimes: treason, desertion, parricide, the crimes that threaten the very foundation of Roman order. You recognize him now. Marcus, he called himself. He's been in the cells for weeks, maintaining his innocence, insisting he was framed for plotting against the emperor. Maybe he was. It doesn't matter now. Once condemned to the cross, all legal niceties cease. He's no longer a person in the eyes of Roman law. He's just meat to be displayed as a warning. The preparation ritual begins. You can hear it, smell it, almost taste it in the air. First comes the flogging, not the simple beating with rods that citizens might face, but the flagellum, leather thongs embedded with bone and metal, designed to flay skin from muscle. To weaken the condemned before their final ordeal, the sound is distinctive, wet, meaty, punctuated by screams that gradually fade to moans as the victims lose the strength to cry out. 39 lashes is traditional. 40 would kill most men outright, and Rome wants them alive for the cross. Alive and conscious for every moment of agony that follows. You count the strikes echoing across the courtyard. 1, 2, 3. By 20, the screaming has stopped. By 30, there's only the sound of leather meeting flesh. By 39, silence except for the labored breathing of the flogger. Water. Someone calls. They splash the condemned to revive them. Can't have them unconscious for the next part. The crowd expects a show, and unconscious men don't provide good entertainment. You hear coughing, retching, the slow return of awareness bringing with it the return of pain, then the distinctive sound of wood being dragged across stone as they bring the cross beams to the condemned. The ritual of carrying the cross through Rome's streets serves multiple purposes. It's practical. The condemned transport part of their own execution device. It's symbolic. They bear the weight of their crimes made manifest in wood. And it's theatrical. A parade of the damned through the city's heart, showing everyone what happens to those who defy Rome. You've seen these processions before, back when you were free. Just another face in the crowd, the condemned stumbling under their burdens. Blood from the flogging soaking through their tunics. The execution squad marching alongside, keeping order. The crowds that gather to watch, to jeer, to throw refuse. Children lifted on shoulders to get a better view. Vendors selling wine and snacks to the spectators. Rome turning execution into entertainment, death into commerce. Move out. The centurion's command carries clearly. You press your face to the bars, trying to see. The procession forms up in the courtyard. 7 men today, each with their crossbeam tied to their outstretched arms. The position forces them to hunch forward, struggling for balance. One falls immediately. Face striking stone, the guards haul him upright. No mercy, but they need him. Mobile. The show must go on. The crimes are announced as they exit the prison. Marcus Quintus, traitor to the divine Augustus. That's the one who claimed citizenship. Brennus, murderer and brigand, a Gallic name, probably caught raiding. Solomon, rebel and insurgent, a Jew who fought against Roman rule. The list continues. Each name, each crime, each life about to end in agony for the entertainment and education of Rome. You lose sight of them as they turn toward the forum, but you can track their progress by the noise of the crowd. Jeers and curses follow them. Through the streets, the sound of impacts, stones, rotten fruit. Whatever the mob can find to throw, once you hear a scream and a crash. Someone has fallen again. The crowd loves when they fall. It shows weakness, proves their guilt. Innocent. Men would find the strength to stand. They tell themselves die in our passes. Maybe two. The sun climbs higher, and with it comes the heat. In your cell, it's merely uncomfortable, but outside, carrying 40 pounds of wood on flayed shoulders, bleeding and stumbling through hostile crowds, you can imagine the torture of it. Some probably pray for death during that march, not knowing that death on the cross will make the journey seem merciful by comparison. Then, carried on the wind, comes the sound you've been dreading. The first nails being driven. It's happening at the execution grounds outside the city walls, along the Via Appia, where all travelers to and from Rome must pass. The crosses line the road for miles, a forest of suffering that declares Rome's power to all who see it. Some bodies hang for days after death, food for crows and dogs, because even in death the condemned serve the state's purposes. The mechanics of crucifixion are precisely calculated for maximum suffering. You know this because a guard explained it once, drunk and boastful about his expertise. It's an art. He slurred. Nail them wrong. They die too quick. Do it right. They last for days. The nails go through the wrists, not the palms. Tear under body weight, between the radius and ulna bones where the median nerve runs. Every movement sends lightning through their arms. The feet are trickier, sometimes nailed separately to either side of the upright, sometimes one atop the other with a single spike through both, sometimes just tied with rope, prolonging the agony. The position is what kills, eventually. Arms stretched wide, chest expanded, every breath a struggle. To inhale, they must push up with their legs. To exhale, they must hang from their arms. Each movement scrapes their flayed backs against rough wood. Each breath is bought with pain. The dance, soldiers call it, that constant movement up and down. The body's desperate struggle to keep breathing despite the agony. Strong men might last 3 days, sometimes more. The weak are lucky to die within hours. And Rome has become expert at judging who will last longest, saving the strongest for special occasions when prolonged suffering is desired. You remember passing crucifixions as a free man, averting your eyes from the writhing figures. But you couldn't escape the sounds, the labored breathing, the delusional rambling as minds break under torture, the begging for water, for death, for their mothers. At worst of all, the silence of those who've passed beyond speech, but still live, still suffer, trapped in bodies that refuse to grant the mercy of death. Their artists are Roman executioners. A voice says behind you, it's one of the other condemned. An old man scheduled for the arena tomorrow. Other nations just kill their criminals. Quick sword stroke, broken neck, whatever. But Rome makes death into sculpture. Every cross is a masterpiece of suffering, carefully crafted for maximum impact. He's right. The placement of crosses is strategic. High traffic areas where thousands must pass. Elevated positions where they can be seen from distance. Sometimes themed arrangements, rebels crucified in the shape of an eagle. Rome's symbol turned into an instrument of death. During major slave revolts, thousands might line the roads, turning entire highways into galleries of agony. The sun reaches its zenith, and you know that outside the city, 7 men are learning the true meaning of Roman justice. The lucky ones might already be slipping into shock, their bodies beginning the slow shutdown that will eventually bring relief. But the guards watch for this. A sponge soaked in vinegar and gall pressed to the lips brings them back to full awareness. Can't have them escaping into unconsciousness. The punishment requires presence of mind to be effective. You know what breaks them. The old man continues. Not the pain men can endure. It's the humiliation, naked before crowds who come to stare and mock. Bodily functions happening uncontrolled for all to see. Strong men reduced to begging. Children for a sip of water. That's what breaks them. Rome doesn't just kill the body. It destroys the spirit first. Birds circle overhead, and you know they're gathering at the execution grounds, crows and vultures. Nature's cleanup crew, waiting patiently for their feast. The guards don't always chase them away. Sometimes they let the birds feed while the crucified still live, pecking at wounds, going for the soft targets, eyes, lips, exposed flesh. Another layer of torment in Rome's carefully orchestrated symphony of suffering. A runner arrives at the prison, bringing news from the execution grounds. You hear the guards discussing it. The Jew is proving stubborn, one says. Been up for hours and still fighting, taking bets on whether he'll last through the night. They laugh, planning their wagers. The citizen broke quick though, begging for death within an hour. Funny how the soft ones always claim innocence loudest. You think about Marcus, who fought so hard this morning, who claimed his rights as a citizen. By now he's learned that on the cross, there are no citizens, no slaves, no foreigners, just meat hanging from wood, slowly dying for the crime of defying Rome, his education, his status, his connections, all meaningless now. The cross is Rome's great equalizer, stripping away everything but pain dot as afternoon fades toward evening. You know the real torment is beginning for those on the crosses. The heat of day gives way to cold night. Muscles cramp from the unnatural position. Insects, drawn by blood and waste, add their own torture, and still death refuses to come. So, men hallucinate, calling out to gods or loved ones. Others rage, cursing Rome with their remaining breath. But most just endure, moment by agonizing moment, waiting for an end that seems impossibly distant. I saw Spartacus's men, the old prisoner says quietly, 6,000 crosses from Rome to Capua. Took weeks to crucify them all. The smell. You could smell it for miles. Death and shit and rotting flesh. But Rome left them hanging for months, until bones fell from rotted ligaments. Every traveler, every merchant, every slave being brought to market had to pass through that corridor of death. Rome's way of saying this is what rebellion brings. 6,000 men. The number is staggering. You try to imagine the logistics of it, the wood required, the nails, the manpower. But Rome is nothing if not efficient when it comes to death. They've turned crucifixion into an industry with specialists in every aspect. Carpenters who build nothing but crosses, smiths who forge nothing but crucifixion spikes, soldiers who know nothing but how to hang men from wood until they stop breathing. Night falls properly now, and somewhere outside Rome, 7 men hang in darkness. Perhaps some have already died, bodies finally surrendering to trauma, but others still live, still suffer, still serve as warnings to any who would challenge Roman authority. Tomorrow there will be new crosses, new victims, new lessons written in flesh and wood. The day after, the same, and the day after that, because crucifixion isn't just an execution method. It's a statement of power so absolute that it can take days to kill a man in public view and call it justice. It's terror made manifest, the shadow of the cross falling across the entire empire. Every subject of Rome knows that this fate awaits those who stepped far out of line, and so they stay in line, not from love or loyalty, but from the bone-deep fear of ending up on Roman wood, dancing the terrible dance of the crucified dot in your cell. As you prepare for your own death tomorrow, you offer a prayer for those on the crosses, not to Roman gods. They clearly have no mercy for the condemned, but to whatever powers might listen to the prayers of the dying. You pray for clouds to hide the sun tomorrow, for rain to cool burning skin, for the mercy of swift death. Small prayers for small mercies, but perhaps that's all the condemned can hope for. Outside, the city settles into sleep, but along the Via Appia, there is no sleep, only the endless struggle for one more breath, one more moment of life, even when life has become nothing but agony. The horror of crucifixion continues through the night, Rome's terrible reminder that power needs no justification beyond its own existence. And tomorrow, when travelers pass those crosses, they'll quicken their pace and avert their eyes. The lesson learned once again. This is what Rome does to its enemies. This is the price of defiance. This is the cross. The roaring starts before dawn, deep, primordial sounds that reach into your chest and squeeze your heart with ancient terror. Lions, tigers, bears. The beast masters are stirring their charges, preparing them for the day's entertainment. They keep them hungry. 3 days without food is standard, just enough to make them aggressive. Not so much that they're weakened. Rome wants a show, not sluggish animals too tired to hunt. You haven't slept. How could you? Tomorrow has become today, and today you die. Around you, your fellow condemned react in different ways. Some pray, cycling through every god they can name. Others sit in stunned silence. A few rage against their chains, bloodying their wrists in futile struggle. And one man laughs, high, hysterical laughter that speaks of a mind already broken. First light, a guard announces, checking his list. Time to prepare the meat. That's what you are now. Not prisoners, not even condemned. Just meat for the beasts. The language strips away the last pretense of humanity, your inventory to be processed. Items on an entertainment program. They come for you in groups. Chains removed, hands bound. Behind backs with rope. No chances taken, even though escape is impossible. Where would you run? The amphitheater is surrounded by guards, filled with thousands of spectators. Beyond that, Rome itself, where your face marks you as condemned. There's nowhere to go but forward, into the arena, into the jaws of waiting death. The preparation area is a study in contrasts. Here, where you're washed and dressed for death, you can smell bread baking from nearby shops. You can hear merchants setting up their stalls. Normal life continuing just yards from where you stand naked as slaves throw cold water over your body. They scrub roughly, efficiently, not for your comfort, but for the crowd's aesthetic. Blood shows better on clean skin. Stand still. One slave orders, pulling a white tunic over your head. The fabric is thin, cheap, just enough to provide modesty until the beasts tear it away. Some of the condemned get special costumes. That woman there, they're dressing her as Dido, who will be torn apart in a recreation of mythological justice. The man beside her becomes Orpheus, destined to be destroyed by bears instead of charmed by his non-existent lyre. You're lucky, if luck can exist in such circumstances. Just a plain tunic and a wooden placard to hang around your neck. Latro, thief. Your crime reduced to a single word. All the complexity of your life, your circumstances. Your choice is condensed into 5 letters for the crowd to read as you die. Through the barred windows, you can hear the amphitheater filling. 20,000 voices creating a buzz of anticipation. Vendors hawk their wares, cushions for comfort, wine for refreshment. Programs listing the order of events. Get your programs. Full list of criminals and their crimes, exclusive details. On the Beast, shipped direct from Africa, the Beast Master appears. A weathered man with scars telling of close encounters with his charges. He inspects the condemned like a chef examining ingredients. To Skinny, he mutters about one man. Lions won't bother once he's down. No meat on him. He points to a larger prisoner. That one first. Get them excited. He's planning the spectacle. Arranging deaths for maximum entertainment value. Ever seen a tiger hunt? He asks no one in particular. Beautiful creatures, killed different from lions. Lions go for the throat, quick and brutal. Tigers play. They like the chase, the fear. We've got a magnificent specimen, Bengal male, 12 feet nose to tail. Killed 3 handlers on the voyage from India. He smiles at the memory. Should provide excellent sport. The holding cells beneath the arena floor are a maze of cages. And Carters, you're herded through, past grates where you can glimpse the beasts. A massive lion paces, muscle rippling beneath tawny hide. Its eyes meet yours, intelligent, calculating. This isn't some mindless monster. It's an apex predator that knows exactly what's coming. The anticipation of the hunt gleams in those golden eyes. Amusing story a guard shares with his companion. Last month, condemned man thought he'd be clever, covered himself in dung. Figured the smell would keep the beast away. He chuckles. The bear didn't care. Took its time with him too. Crowd loved it. The would-be clever criminal getting his comeuppance. You're sorted into groups now. First will be the mythological executions, criminals dying in ways that echo ancient stories. Then the mass releases, groups thrown in together. Chaos and carnage. Finally, the individual hunts, where single prisoners face single beasts. The order is carefully planned for dramatic effect, building to a crescendo of blood and death. The elevator mechanisms are already creaking to life, raising and lowering platforms that will deliver both beasts and condemned to the arena floor. Roman engineering at its finest, all in service of death. You can hear the crowd's excitement spike each time a platform rises, even though the main events haven't started yet. They're showing exotic animals first. Zebras, giraffes, ostriches. Appetizers before the main course. Listen close, an old guard advises, almost kindly. When you get up there, don't run immediately. The chase triggers their instinct. Stand still. Make them come to you. Won't save you, but might make it quicker. Others offer different advice. Run toward them, one says. Confuse them. Maybe they'll kill you fast. Play dead, suggests another, though he admits he's never seen it work. A woman near you begins to keen, a low wailing that raises hackles. She's perhaps 30, branded as a poisoner. My children, she moans. Who will care for her? My children. No one answers. The children of condemned criminals often end up as slaves or worse. Rome's justice reaches beyond the individual, touching entire families with its cold hand. The first group is called 20 men and women dressed as mythological figures, herded toward the elevators. You watch them go, some stumbling, some walking, proudly, some being dragged. The roar of the crowd intensifies as they appear in the arena. Then screams, human and animal mixing in a symphony of violence. It doesn't last long. It never does when the numbers are against you. Next group, you're pushed forward with 30 others, all common criminals like yourself. No costumes, no mythology, just meat for the beasts. The elevator platform is sticky with blood from previous use. No one bothers to clean between groups. You crowd, together, instinctively seeking comfort in proximity even though you know it won't help. The machinery groans, and you begin to rise. Through the gaps in the platform, you can see the complex mechanisms, counterweights, pulleys, teams of slaves, turning massive wheels. All this effort, all this ingenuity, just to deliver you to death more efficiently. The Roman genius for organization applied to slaughter. Light hits you first, blinding after the dimness below. Then sound, 20,000 voices screaming for blood. The smell hits next, sand soaked with blood, animal musk, the sweet sick scent of death. Your eyes adjust, and you see the arena spread before you. It's been transformed into a mockery of natural landscape. Fake rocks, scraggly trees, creating the illusion of wilderness in the heart of Rome. Bodies litter the sand from the previous event. The mythological criminals, now just cooling meat. A woman dressed as Pasiphae lies twisted. Her bold costume soaked red. Orpheus still clutches his fake lyre. Though his head is several feet from his body, staged hands are already moving to clear them, But carefully, the beasts are still loose. You see them now. 3 lions, 2 males and a female, muzzles red with blood. A pack of wolves circles nervously. They prefer to hunt at night, and the daylight makes them skittish. And there, padding out from behind a fake boulder, the tiger. Even from here, you can see its magnificent, striped death-given form, moving with liquid grace. The crowd screams louder as your group stumbles into the arena. Some of your fellow condemned break immediately, running in all directions. Exactly what the Beastmaster wanted. The lions orient on movement, beginning their charge. The tiger watches, calculating, choosing its target. The wolves hang back. They'll wait for the larger predators to make their kills, then dart in for scraps. A man near you, the one who laughed in the cells, spreads his arms wide and walks toward the nearest lion. Come on then, he shouts. Let's get this over with. The lion obliges, covering the distance in 3 bounds. The impact knocks the man flying. Then the jaws close on his throat, and his defiance ends in a gurgle. The crowd approves. They appreciate when condemned show spirit. You remember the guard's advice and stand still. Though every instinct screams to run, around you, chaos erupts. A woman tries to climb one of the fake trees, but wolves leap, dragging her down. 2 men attempt to stand back to back, facing the threats together. But a lion separates them with casual violence. The sand, carefully, raked clean moments ago, is already churning into bloody mud that the tiger has chosen. It moves toward a young man who's pressed himself against the arena wall, trying to become invisible. The tiger takes its time, stalking, playing with its prey. The crowd loves this, the deliberate hunt, the visible terror of the victim. When it finally pounces, it doesn't go for the throat. The Beastmaster was right. Tigers play with their food. A lion notices you standing still and approaches, curious. Its breath is hot, reeking of meat and blood. Those golden eyes study you with alien intelligence. You can see yourself reflected in them, small, pale, insignificant, easy prey. It opens its mouth, revealing teeth designed by nature for one purpose. You close your eyes, waiting for the strike, but it doesn't come. Screams nearby distract the lion, easier prey running and stumbling. It turns away, joining the chase. You're left standing, temporarily forgotten, forced to watch as those around you die in ways that will haunt whatever brief time you have left. The woman who worried about her children, wolves have her. The branded thief who shared his bread, the tiger's plaything now. Some try to fight. One man picks up a rock, hurling it at a lion. It bounces harmlessly off the beast's skull, serving only to anger it. Another uses his tunic, trying to blind a wolf, tangling it briefly before others pull him down. These small acts of defiance drive the crowd wild. They bet on everything. Who'll die first? Who'll last longest? Who'll show courage? Who'll beg? You watch a strange dance develop. The condemned learning quickly, stay together, and the beasts pick off the edges, scatter, and die alone. Some form desperate alliances, pushing others toward the beasts to buy themselves moments. Human nature stripped to its basest survival instincts, and the crowd drinking it in like wine. The tiger has finished playing. Its victim stopped moving some time ago. But the great cat continues batting the body about like a bloody toy. This seems to bore the crowd. They prefer living victims. Some begin throwing things into the arena, pieces of food, to direct the beast towards specific targets, stones to make the condemned move. A lion finally remembers you, approaching again. This time there's purpose in its stride. You back away, slowly, knowing it's futile. The wall is behind you, nowhere to go. The lion crouches, muscles bunching for the spring. You see death in its eyes and find, strangely, that the terror has passed. You're too exhausted, too overwhelmed to feel anything but a numb acceptance. Look out. Someone slams into you, knocking you sideways. The lion's leap carries it past, claws scraping stone where your head had been. Your savior, though that's the wrong word when you're all dying anyway, is a young woman, barely out of her teens. We have to try, she gasps. Have to keep moving, so you do. The two of you join the dwindling numbers still on their feet, dodging and weaving in a grotesque game. But it's like trying to bail out a sinking ship with your hands. One by one, the others fall. The sand is more red than yellow now. Bodies and parts of bodies scattered like discarded toys. The beasts are beginning to slow. Bellies filling. This is what the beast masters calculate so carefully. Enough hunger for aggression. Not so much that they gorge and lose interest, The killing becomes more casual now, lazy. A wolf drags down a man more from instinct than hunger. A lion bats someone with its paw, claws shredding flesh, then walks away disinterested. Your companion stumbles, exhaustion taking its toll. A wolf sees opportunity, darting in. You try to help, but what can you do against nature's killers? She screams once as teeth find her leg, dragging her down. You reach for her hand, but she pushes you away. Run, she gasps. Then the pack is on her, and her voice is lost in their snarling. You're one of the last now. Maybe 5 still standing out of 30. The crowd begins a rhythmic chant, calling for conclusion. They've had their entertainment, seen their blood. Now they want the finale. The beast masters below prepare the next group. Your show is almost over. The tiger finds you, as you knew it would. There's nowhere left to run, no one left to hide behind. It approaches slowly, almost leisurely. You can see your death in its eyes, not cruel, not evil, just the indifference of nature, your prey. It's a predator. This is how the world works. Stripped of civilization's pretenses, you drop to your knees, not in submission, but because your legs won't hold you anymore. The tiger circles, perhaps puzzled by prey that doesn't flee. The crowd quiets, watching. This is the moment they came for, the final surrender, the last light extinguished. You think of that woman who tried to save you, of the man who faced death with defiance, of all the small humanities displayed even here, in this place designed to strip humanity away. The tiger springs, impact, pain, but less than expected. Pressure more than agony. The world tilts, sand rough against your cheek. You can hear the crowd's roar of approval, but it seems very far away. Darkness creeps in from the edges of your vision, not the darkness of the cells below, but something deeper, more final. Your last coherent thought is strange, pity for the beasts. Tomorrow they'll be asked to do this again, and the day after, trapped in their cages, forced to kill for entertainment, as much slaves to Rome as any human. Then even that thought fades. You're falling into a darkness from which there's no waking. But in the arena, the show goes on. They're already releasing the next group of condemned. The beasts, blood-drunk and lazy, show little interest. The beast masters prod them with long poles, forcing renewed aggression. The crowd demands its full measure of death, and Rome always delivers. By sunset, the arena will be cleared, the bodies carted away to mass graves outside the city. The sand turned and raked, ready for tomorrow's games. The beasts fed properly, and returned to their cages. Just another day of Roman justice, where death becomes spectacle, and spectacle reinforces the power of the state. The damnatio ad bestias, thrown to the beasts, serving its purpose of entertainment, elimination, and education all at once. And tomorrow, in cells beneath the arena, new condemned will listen to new roars, waiting their turn to dance with death while Rome watches and cheers. In the depths of the Tullianum, deeper even than where common criminals wait, there's a special cell. Here, absolute darkness reigns. No window, no gap for light to enter. The walls weep constant moisture, and the air taste of centuries of fear. This is where they keep the parasites, those who've committed the ultimate crime against nature itself, the killer's appearance. You hear him before you see him, sobbing, not the normal tears of the condemned, but something deeper, more broken. When the guards bring their torches, illuminating the cell for the daily inspection, you finally glimpse him, Marcus Aurelius Calvus, though he's lost the right to that noble name now. Once a merchant of some standing, now just another parasite, waiting for the special death Rome reserves for those who shed the blood that gave them life. He killed his father, the guard explains to a new recruit, speaking as if Marcus isn't there. Struck him down with a cudgel during an argument over inheritance. The blood was still on his hands when the vigils found him. The guard spits, parasite, worse than beasts. At least animals don't turn on their own sires. Marcus looks up at the voices, and you see madness dancing in his eyes. He's been here for weeks, maybe months. Time moves strangely in absolute darkness. They keep parasites separate from other prisoners, as if their crime might contaminate others. Even among the condemned, there are hierarchies of horror, and parasite sits at the very bottom. Please, Marcus whispers, his voice cracked from disuse. It was an accident. I didn't mean. The rage took me, just for a moment. One moment of madness, and now, he trails off, returning to his sobbing. The guards ignore him. They've heard it all before. Accident, madness, self-defense. Parasites always have excuses. Rome doesn't care. The crime is absolute, and so is the punishment. The pena culli, the penalty of the sack. It's a punishment so ancient that some say it predates Rome itself, inherited from the Etruscans or perhaps even older civilizations. While other execution methods have evolved, become more elaborate or efficient, the sack punishment remains unchanged. A ritual of horror preserved in amber, waiting for those who commit the unforgivable. Tomorrow, the senior guard announces, checking his tablet, the moon will be new, darkness for dark deeds. The timing matters for this execution. They wait for moonless nights when the darkness is absolute. Everything about the pena culli is wrapped in symbolism, ritual significance that transforms execution into something approaching religious ceremony. That night, they move Marcus to a cell, where he can hear the preparations, the slow, careful stitching of the sack, leather specially treated to be watertight, large enough to hold a man and other things. The leather workers take their time. This isn't work to be rushed. Every stitch must hold, every seam must be perfect. The sack must not tear, must not leak. The punishment requires completeness. You hear them? An old guard asks Marcus through the bars. That's your fate being sewn together, thread by thread. Finest leather, too. Can't have it splitting open in the water. That would ruin the whole effect. He's not being intentionally cruel, or perhaps he is, with guards who've worked these cells for years. It's hard to tell where duty ends and sadism begins. The ritual begins before dawn. They strip Marcus naked, then dress him in wooden shoes, soli lignei. These serve a practical purpose. They make it harder to swim, harder to find purchase on river bottom, but they're also symbolic, wood from the trees that witness all crimes, that stand as mute testimony to human evil. Every detail has meaning in this ancient punishment. Next comes the wolf skin. They drape it over his shoulders, the preserved hide of a wolf killed specifically for this purpose. Marcus will die dressed as a beast, cast out from humanity. The symbolism is clear. He who acts as a beast shall die as one, but worse than a beast, for even wolves don't kill their own parents. The flogging that follows is different from the standard pre-execution beating. They use virgi sanguinea, blood-red rods cut from cornelian cherry trees. The color matters. Red for the blood spilled, for the family ties severed. Each strike is counted, one for each year of the parent's life. Marcus's father was 53. 53 times the rods fall, painting his back crimson to match that color dot by full daylight. A crowd has gathered. Word spreads quickly when the pena culli is to be performed. It's rare enough to be special, perhaps once or twice a year in Rome itself. Citizens bring their children, especially their sons. See what happens to those who raise hands against their parents. They whisper, "This is what awaits the unfilial, the ungrateful, the monstrous." The procession forms. Marcus, bloodied and draped in wolfskin, stumbles forward. Before him, carried on poles like banners, are the portraits of his ancestors, the imagens maiorum that once graced his family home. These masks of wax, lovingly preserved through generations, now serve as witnesses to his shame. He has broken the chain of pietas, of duty and respect that binds Roman families. The dead faces of his bloodline stare down at him in judgment. Behind him come the animals. This is what makes the pena culli unique among Roman punishments. The companions for the journey into death. A dog, symbol of shamelessness. A cock, representing the parricide's unnatural violence, for roosters are known to fight their own fathers. A viper, most venomous of serpents, whose young are said to gnaw their way out of their mother's belly. And a monkey, that grotesque parody of humanity, neither man nor proper beast. Finding these animals is no simple matter. The dog must be alive and healthy. The cock must be a fighter, proven in the arena. The viper must be venomous, sometimes brought from great distances, at considerable expense. The monkey, rarest of all, shipped from Africa or Gibraltar. Rome spares no expense when it comes to proper execution of justice. I've seen men break at this point. A spectator comments to his companion, "The animals are what does it," knowing you'll be sown in the darkness with creatures that will panic, that will claw and bite and strike in their terror. Death by drowning would be mercy. This is something else. The sack itself waits at the destination, a specially chosen spot on the Tiber, where the water runs deep and fast. It lies spread on the ground like the skin of some enormous beast. The leather gleams with oil, worked to suppleness, large enough for a man and for animals, with room for all to thrash in their death throes. The sight of it reduces Marcus to whimpering. He has to be dragged the final steps. Now comes the careful orchestration. The animals go in first, one by one. The dog, muzzled until the last moment, snarling and snapping. The cock, spurs sharp and ready, already pecking at the sack's confines. The viper, dropped in with long tongs, immediately seeking the darkest corner. The monkey last, screeching in terror, understanding perhaps better than the others what's happening. Then Marcus, he fights now, finally, too late, but weakened by flogging and weeks of confinement. He's no match for the guards. They force him into the sack headfirst, pushing him down among the terrified animals. The dog's muzzle is removed just as the sack is sealed. The sound that emerges, muffled snarling, screeching, Marcus screaming, turns even hardened stomachs. The stitching begins. This is the crucial moment. The sack must be sewn shut with Marcus and the animals fully alive and aware. Heavy thread, double-stitched, pulled tight. The leather worker moves methodically around the opening, closing it inch by inch. The sack bulges and writhes as its occupants struggle. You can see shapes pressing against the leather, a hand here, a paw there, something that might be the monkey's face. The viper usually kills him, an expert observer notes, in the darkness and chaos. It strikes repeatedly, but sometimes it's the dog, jaws finding throat in the press of bodies. I've seen men pulled out days later with cock spurs driven through. Their eyes, the monkey, well, they're clever. They go for soft spots, eyes, throat, groin. Nasty fighters when cornered. The sack is sealed now, a writhing ball of leather and violence. The sounds coming from within are indescribable, human, screams mixing with animal cries, all muffled by leather and river water. They tie heavy stones to the outside, not enough to sink it immediately, but enough to keep it low in the water, tumbling along the bottom with the current. The parade to the river is solemn now. The crowd follows, but quietly. This isn't the raucous celebration of a crucifixion or beast show. This is something older, darker. The peanut cully touches something primitive in Roman souls, the horror of kinslaying, the necessity of absolute punishment, the thin line between civilization and chaos. At the river bank, priests perform purification rites. The murder of a parent pollutes not just the killer, but the very earth of Rome. Only by removing the parasite completely, sealed away from earth, air, and sky, can the pollution be cleansed. The sack ensures he dies touching none of the elements, trapped in leather darkness with beasts as his only companions. They don't throw the sack immediately. First, it's displayed, still writhing and bulging, sound still emerging from within. Parents point, children stare. This is education at its most visceral. Then, with ceremony, strong men lift the sack. A prayer is spoken, not for Marcus, but for Rome itself, asking the gods to accept this offering of justice and keep the city pure. The splash as the sack hits water is anticlimactic. It bobs for a moment, leather glistening wet. Then the current takes it, and it begins its journey. Sometimes they flow for miles before sinking. Sometimes they wash up on banks downstream. Bloated and still, the law says they must not be retrieved, must not be buried. The parasite is denied even the dignity of a grave. I followed one once, an old man admits. Walked along the bank for hours, watching it tumble in the current. The sound stopped after maybe an hour. The movement continued longer, probably just the dead bodies shifting. With the river's flow, it sank finally near Ostia, just disappeared into deep water and was gone. But the horror of the peanut cully extends beyond the physical death. Romans believe in the afterlife, in the spirits of the dead joining their ancestors. But the parasite, dying sealed away from earth and sky, cannot make that journey. His spirit remains trapped, unable to cross the Styx, unable to find peace. It's eternal punishment to match an eternal crime. The crowd disperses slowly. Parents grip their children's hands tighter. Sons look at their fathers with new respect, new fear. The lesson has been taught, written in leather and blood in the muddy waters of the Tiber. This is what happens to those who break the most fundamental bond of Roman society. This is the fate of those who murder the ones who gave them life. Back in the prison, in that special cell for parasites, another waits. He watched them take Marcus this morning, heard the sounds of preparation. He knows his turn will come with the next new moon. Perhaps he tells himself it won't be so bad. Perhaps he prays for courage. Perhaps he's already mad from contemplating what awaits. The guards clean Marcus's cell, burning sulfur to purify it. Soon another parasite will occupy it, waiting in darkness for darkness. The cycle continues. The peanut cully waits, patient as always, ready to swallow those who commit the unforgivable. And Rome sleeps easier knowing that this ancient horror stands ready, a deterrent more powerful than any law, any prison, any mere death, for in the end, the sack punishment isn't just about killing parasites. It's about making the very thought of parasite so horrific that no sane person would contemplate it. It's about drawing a line that must not be crossed, and marking that line with a punishment so elaborate, so symbolic, so utterly terrifying that it burns itself into the collective memory of Rome. And it works. In a society where violence is common, where life is cheap, where death comes in 1,000 forms, parricide remains rare. The sack waits, and in waiting, serves its purpose. The ultimate crime demands the ultimate punishment, and Rome, in its terrible wisdom, provides exactly that. The 10th Legion stands in formation on the dusty plains outside their camp near Capua. 8,000 men, veterans of campaigns in Gaul and Germania, reduced to trembling like new recruits. They know what's coming. The whispers started at dawn, when the centurions began separating them into groups of 10. Decimation, the ancient punishment that gives generals nightmares and soldiers terrors. Cowardice, the legate reads from his scroll, his voice carrying across the silent ranks. In the face of Germanic tribesmen, the 10th Legion broke formation and fled. Roman soldiers running from barbarians. The shame of it stains not just you, but the eagles you carry, the ancestors who watch, and Rome itself. He pauses, letting the weight of the word settle. The punishment for cowardice is death. But Rome is merciful. Only 1 in 10 will die. Only 1 in 10. 800. Men, the arithmetic of horror that is decimation. You stand in your group of 10. Men you've served beside for 3 years. Gaius, who saved your life at the Rhine crossing. Old Marcus, 20 years in the legions, more scars than smooth skin. Young Flavius, barely 18, still sending half his pay home to his widowed mother. Brothers in arms, bound by shared danger and spilled blood. Now you must draw lots to see who dies. The centurion approaches with a leather bag. Inside, 10 stones, 9 white, 1 black. The hand that draws the black stone will die, beaten to death by the other 9. This is the genius cruelty of decimation. It's not enough that soldiers die for cowardice. They must kill their own, become executioners of men they've called brother. You first. The centurion orders Gaius. Your friend reaches into the bag, his hand steady despite what's at stake. A white stone, relief floods his face, immediately followed by guilt. He's safe, but someone else won't be. Marcus next. White. Flavius, his young hand shaking. White. 1 by 1. Your contubernium draws their fates. You're turned. The bag feels heavier than a full kit on forced march. You reach in, fingers closing on smooth stone for a moment. You hold it unseen, shrouding a stone that is both black and white until observed. Then you draw it out. White. You're safe. You'll live. You'll kill. 3 men left. Quintus the standard bearer, Lucius the armorer, Antonius who makes everyone laugh with his crude jokes. The odds shift with each draw. Quintus, white, his legs nearly buckle with relief. Lucius, white, which means Antonius doesn't need to draw, but ritual demands it. He reaches into the bag, pulls out the last stone, black as the sticks, black as the deed that must follow. He stares at it for a long moment, then laughs. That same laugh that's lifted spirits through 100 miserable camps. Well, lads, he says, at least I won't have to eat any more of that swill they call porridge. But his bravado fades as the centurion produces the clubs, not gladiator for a clean death, not pillow for a soldier's end. Clubs, wooden instruments of shame. You must beat your brother to death like he's a criminal, not a man you've shared wine and women and war with. The wood is smooth from use. This isn't the first decimation, won't be the last. Form a circle. The centurion commands. You obey, muscle memory overriding the screaming in your mind. Antonius stands in the center, that black stone still clutched in his fist. He's removed his armor. No point in prolonging things, just his tunic, already soaked with fierce sweat despite the morning chill. No hard feelings, boys, Antonius says. But his voice cracks. Orders are orders. Just make it quick. Yeah, and tell my sister. He can't finish. What do you tell his sister? That her brother died because he drew the wrong stone, that his friends killed him, that this is Roman justice. The centurion raises his vine staff, the vitus that marks his rank, and has disciplined countless soldiers, Begin, he orders. No one moves. 8,000 men watch, 9 stand frozen. The moment stretches, taut as a bowstring. Then the centurion's voice, cold as alpine snow. Refuse, and you all die. Your choice, Gaius, moves first. Of course he does, always following orders, always the perfect soldier. His club rises, falls. The sound of what on flesh is wet, meaty. Antonius staggers but stays upright. Then Marcus, apologizing with each strike, sorry, boy, so sorry. Flavius is crying as he swings, this boy who charged Germanic shield walls. Without flinching, you have to participate, have to strike your blows. The club feels wrong in your hands, balanced for cruelty rather than combat. You aim for the head, mercy disguised as obedience. Let him die quickly, but Antonius is strong. A soldier's strength, and he won't fall easily. The circle tightens. Clubs rising and falling in horrible rhythm, blood now, spattering your tunic, warm on your face. Antonius has stopped joking, stopped talking, just makes animal sounds of pain. Still standing though, swaying like a tree in a storm. Someone, Quintus, lands a blow that drops him to his knees. Better angle now for what must be done. But he looks up at you all, blood streaming from his broken face, and manages words, not your fault, absolving you even as you kill him. This breaks something in Flavius, who swings wild, screaming. The others follow, a frenzy of violence born from shame and horror. Better to end it. Better to stop those eyes from looking at you with understanding when it's over, and it takes so long to be over. Antonius is unrecognizable, just meat and broken bones in a torn tunic. The black stone is rolled from his dead fingers, lying in blood-soaked dust like an accusation. You're all splattered with him, marked by the deed. The clubs are taken away, but the stain remains. Let this be a lesson, the legate proclaims to the watching legion. Cowardice is contagion. It must be cut out wherever found. You ran from barbarians, shamed your eagles. Now you've cleansed that shame with Roman blood, spilled by Roman hands. Remember this when next you think to flee. Remember what your cowardice costs. 800 circles of men, 800 Antoniuses, Marcuses, Gaviuses, 800 black stones. The plain stinks of blood and shit and vomit as soldiers empty, their stomachs overwhelmed by what they've done. But it's not over. The bodies must be disposed of. No proper cremation for the decimated. They're thrown in mass graves, denied military honors, erased except as examples. That night in camp, no one speaks. What is there to say? You killed a friend because random chance demanded it. Tomorrow you'll train together. Next week march together. Perhaps die together in some barbarian ambush. But tonight you sit in silence, seeing Antonius's face every time you close your eyes. The decimation works, of course. That's why Rome keeps using it despite its horror. No one in the 10th will run again. The fear of Germanic spears pales beside the fear of drawing black stones. You'll stand and die rather than risk putting your brothers through this again. Discipline restored through shared atrocity. But decimation is just one tool in Rome's military punishment arsenal. The fustuarian waits for deserters and thieves, beaten to death by the entire unit. Hundreds of men taking turns until nothing remains but pulp. No lots drawn here, no random chance. Desert your post, steal from your brothers, and face the clubs of thousands. Lesser offenses merit lesser punishments, though lesser is relative. Castigatio, flogging before the assembled legion, the centurion's vine staff breaking across backs until it splinters, then getting a fresh one to continue. Greatest actio, reduction in rank, wages cut, privileges lost. Militia mutatio, transfer to inferior units, from cavalry to infantry, from infantry to work gangs, for minor infractions. They're standing guard in full kit outside the general's tent, hours in armor under beating sun or freezing rain, or barley rations instead of wheat, marked as less than proper soldiers, eating animal feed. Public humiliation calibrated to crime, designed to maintain the discipline that makes Roman armies invincible. You've seen them all in your years of service. Watched a man stoned for losing his sword, the weapon that makes him a soldier, carelessly discarded. Seen another forced to stand barefoot in winter snow for falling asleep on watch, toes turning black with frostbite. Military justice is swift, brutal, visible. We're not cruel. A veteran centurion once explained after a particularly harsh punishment. We're practical. One undisciplined soldier can break a formation. One coward can start a rout. One thief can destroy unit cohesion. So we crush these things utterly, immediately. That's how we conquered the world. Not through bravery, but through discipline. He was right. In the cold arithmetic of empire, Roman soldiers aren't braver than Gauls or Germans or Parthians, but they're more afraid of their own officers than any enemy. They hold formation when others break because breaking means decimation. They stand when others flee because fleeing means fustuarium. Fear of punishment welds them into the machine that is a Roman legion, but the cost, you think, of Antonius's black stone, of his broken face, of his forgiveness. You think of the boy who drew the stone in the century next to yours. Couldn't have been more than 16, sobbing for his mother as his tent mates killed him. You think of all the black stones, drawn across all the legions, across all the years of Roman expansion. The next morning, training resumes. You drill with the 9 survivors of your group, moving in the formations that failed you against the Germans. But there's a gap where Antonius should be, a silence where his laughter should ring. The centurion notices, adds extra drill until you move as one again. 10 becoming 9 becoming a unit again. Roman practicality at work. 3 months later, you face Germanic tribes again. They come howling from the forests, the same terrifying charge that broke you before. Men around you waver, that animal instinct to flee rising like bile. Then someone, Gaius, Marcus, shouts, "Remember the stones," and you do. You remember the weight of white stone in your hand, the weight of clubs striking flesh. You remember 800 dead brothers. You hold. The line holds. The Germans break against. Roman discipline like waves on stone. Victory, bought with blood and shame and the arithmetic of decimation. The legate praises the 10th's courage, but you know better. It wasn't courage that held you in place. It was fear of the bag of stones, fear of becoming either victim or executioner again. That night, celebrating victory, someone starts to make a joke, the kind Antonius would have made. They stop mid-word, remembering, the wine tastes like ashes, victory tastes like ashes. Everything tastes like the dust where black stones roll from dead fingers. This is the reality of Roman military punishment. Not just death for the guilty, but complicity for the innocent. Not just fear of dying, but fear of killing those you love. Discipline maintained through shared horror, victory achieved through mutual trauma. The decimated legion fights harder not from restored courage, but from the knowledge of what failure costs. And so Rome's legions remain unbreakable. Held together by bonds of brotherhood and chains of fear, the cleverest punishment system ever. Devised, turning soldiers into their own enforcers, making them guard each other as zealously as any enemy. Decimation's true genius isn't in the mathematics of death. It's in the psychology of survival. The weight of stones in leather bags. The knowledge that mercy and justice are luxuries soldiers can't afford. The 10th Legion will carve its name in glory across Gaul, Germania, and beyond. History will remember its victories, its valor, its vital role in Rome's expansion. But you'll remember Antonius. You'll remember the weight of white stone and wooden club. You'll remember that the price of empire is paid not just in enemy blood, but in Roman souls, one black stone at a time. The silver mines of Hispania stretch before you like wounds in the earth. Damnatio ad metalla, condemnation to the mines, a sentence that sounds almost merciful, compared to crucifixion or the beasts, but those who've seen the mines know better. This is death, just slower, a living burial that makes the arena's quick violence seem kind. You're chained to 20 other condemned, shuffling down the narrow shaft into darkness. The overseer's torch reveals your new world, tunnels barely tall enough to crawl through, air thick with stone dust and the stench of human misery. Men who've been here months look like walking corpses, their skin gray from lack of sun, bodies skeletal from starvation rations. Welcome to Hades, croaks a voice from the shadows. Though Hades would be paradise compared to this. The speaker emerges, impossible to tell his age beneath the grime and scars. Could be 30, could be 60, the mind's age men in dog years. I'm Crassus, used to be anyway. Down here we're all just numbered tools. The work begins immediately. No orientation, no mercy for newcomers. You're given a crude pick and pointed toward a vein of silver ore. The quota is impossible, designed to be. Fail to meet it and you're flogged. Meet it and it increases. The mathematics of extraction calibrated to extract maximum profit before bodies fail. 12 hours a day in near darkness, breathing rock dust that settles in lungs like concrete. The heat in the deep shafts is suffocating. Men collapse regularly, are dragged out, and if they're lucky, die. If unlucky, They revive in time for the next shift. Water is rationed. Food is whatever grain has spoiled the badly for livestock. Just enough to keep you working, never enough to maintain strength. But it's not the physical horror that breaks men fastest. It's the knowledge that this is forever. No release date, no hope of survival. Statistics say 6 months average lifespan. The strong might last a year. You'll die down here, your body thrown in a mass pit with countless others. Silver and Roman coins your only monument. The nights bring different torments. Packed into airless barracks, men cough up blood and rock dust. The sound never stops. Hacking, wheezing, the rattle of dying breaths. Fights break out over nothing. A crust of bread, a spot near the air shaft, the madness of captivity. Guards don't intervene unless production is threatened. Let the condemned thin their own numbers. You learn the hierarchies quickly. New rivals at the bottom doing the most dangerous work. Veterans who've survived 6 months get marginally better positions. The walking dead, those past the point of fear or hope, are given the worst jobs. Crawling into spaces where the ceiling might collapse, handling the mercury used to process ore. Tasks that kill in days rather than months. One, morning or night. Time has no meaning underground. They bring in fresh condemned. Among them, a woman, rare but not unheard of. She killed her husband, they say, poisoned him slowly. Now she'll die slowly in return. The guards auction her off to the highest bidder among the prisoners. Roman justice finds ways to degrade even. In the depths, 3 months in, you witness your first mine collapse. A support beam, rotted and overloaded, gives way. The tunnel folds like a closing fist, trapping 6 men. Their screams carry through the rock for hours. The overseer calculates cost of digging them out versus value of slave labor. Decision made. They're left to die. Their voices haunt the tunnels for days until finally, silence. You're transferred deeper. 2 shafts where the heat makes men faint and the air is more poison than oxygen. Here they process cinnabar, mercury, or that kills faster than any labor. Men's hands shake uncontrollably. They speak to people who aren't there. Blood leaks from noses and ears. A month here is a death sentence, but someone must do it, and condemned life is cheapest. You know, what's funny? Crassus says one night, his breathing labored for months of dust. I stole bread, 1 loaf to feed my children. Judge said the mines would teach me the value of honest work. He laughs, triggering a coughing fit that brings up blood. I've pulled enough silver from these rocks to buy a villa on the Palatine. Still a thief in their eyes. The endless dark begins to break minds. Men who seem stable suddenly run screaming into the deepest tunnels, preferring to die lost in the labyrinth than continue. Others sit down and refuse to move, accepting the floggings until their backs are raw meat. Some find religion, praying to any god who might listen. None answer. Gods don't visit the mines. You last 8 months before the fever takes you. It starts as exhaustion, progresses to shaking, then delirium in your fevered dreams. You're back in sunlight, but it burns. You're drowning, but in stone does not water. The mine's doctor, a condemned man who claimed medical knowledge to avoid the deepest shafts, declares you unfit for work. This is a death sentence. They drag you to the terminus, the final tunnel where the dying are left. No food or water wasted here, just darkness and the company of others waiting to die. Some go quickly, others linger for days. You drift in and out of consciousness, unsure what's real anymore. Perhaps none of it is. Perhaps you died months ago and this is the underworld. It would explain so much, but even as you die in darkness 1,000 feet below ground, new horrors unfold in Rome's amphitheaters. The midday executions have evolved into elaborate productions. Criminals don't just die, they star in fatal reenactments of myths and histories. A condemned woman becomes Dirce, tied to a bowl and dragged to death. A man plays Icarus with wings that ensure his fall. Another is Hercules, but instead of triumph, he burns alive on a pyre. The crowd loves these mythological deaths. They combine culture with cruelty, education with entertainment. Watch Orpheus torn apart, not by Maenads, but by bears. See Prometheus bound, not to a rock, but to a cross, while trained birds peck at his liver. Witness Mucius Scaevola thrust his hand into flames, except this criminal can't withdraw it. Chained in place until flesh chars to bone for those guilty of arson. The punishment of fire seems fitting. A Roman creativity makes even burning alive into spectacle. The tunica molesta, the painful shirt, soaked in pitch and set ablaze. The condemned becomes a human torch, running in circles while the crowd bets on how many steps before collapse. Nero made them into garden decorations, lighting his parties with burning Christians. Art and atrocity intertwine. Women face their own particular horrors. Those condemned for adultery might be given to the gladiators for sport before execution. Prostitutes who killed clients are burned alive, their ashes scattered to prevent burial. Poisoners face the fate they inflicted, forced to drink concoctions that ensure slow, agonizing death, while physicians describe each symptom for educational purposes. The torture devices grow more elaborate with each generation. The bronze bowl, a phalaris, imported from Sicily, where victims are roasted alive inside while their screams emerge transformed into bull's bellows. The breaking wheel, where limbs are systematically shattered before the final blow. The saw, applied slowly from groin upward while the condemned hangs inverted to prolong consciousness. But it's not just the methods that evolve. It's the bureaucracy of death. Specialized torturers who know exactly how much pain a body can endure. Before shock sets in, physicians who revive the unconscious for continued punishment. Archivists who record every scream, every confession. Building libraries of suffering for future reference, Rome transforms execution into science. In the Colosseum's hypogeum, they prepare tomorrow's elaborate deaths. A carpenter builds the cross, where a criminal will reenact Marsyas being flayed by Apollo. Painters prepare the backdrop of Mount Olympus. Musicians rehearse the accompaniment, because even skinning alive needs proper theatrical presentation. The condemned waits in chains, knowing he'll die as entertainment between gladiator bouts. The system perpetuates itself. Sons of executed criminals often end up condemned themselves, poverty and stigma driving them to crime. Daughters become prostitutes, brothers join gangs, entire families spiral into the machinery of Roman justice. The executed leave behind widows and orphans who likely face their own judgment someday. Cycles of punishment that span generations. Yet still they come to watch, senators in their shaded boxes discussing politics while men burn below. Merchants doing deals as women are torn apart by beasts. Children eating honeyed dates while criminals are boiled alive in oil. The normalization of horror so complete that execution becomes background noise to daily life. Just another day in Rome, where death is art and art is power. As night falls across the empire, in mines and arenas. On crosses and pyres, the condemned continue dying, each death a message, each scream a lesson, each elaborate execution a reminder of Rome's absolute power. From the darkness of the mines to the spectacle of the arena, from the horror of the sack to the shame of decimation, Roman justice grinds on. Efficient in eternal in the morning, new condemned will fill the cells, new crowds will gather to watch, new methods will be devised by creative minds. Because Rome's hunger for exemplary punishment is insatiable, and there's always another criminal to feed into the machine. The cycle continues. Will continue as long as Rome stands. Order, maintained through orchestrated horror, civilization built on foundations of bone and blood. And somewhere in the silver mines of Hispania, in a tunnel collapsed months ago, lie the bones of men who stole bread, who spoke truth, who dared dream of freedom. Their only monument the silver and Roman coins, their only epitaph the silence. Of stone, above them, Rome gleams in marble splendor, its glory built on their graves, its power measured in the creativity of its cruelty. This is Roman justice, not blind, but all-seeing, not balanced but absolute, not merciful, but magnificently, terrifyingly efficient. A system that transforms human suffering into state power, that makes death into lesson and lesson into law. The greatest empire the world has ever known, held together by fear so profound it needs no justification beyond its own existence. Tomorrow, the sun will rise on new executions, new tortures, new lessons written in flesh. The machine never stops, never sleeps, never shows mercy. It doesn't need to. It is Rome, eternal and terrible. And resistance isn't just futile, it's fatal in ways limited only by human imagination. The condemned know this. The citizens know this. The world knows this. And so the empire endures. Built on terror so absolute, it becomes its own justification. This is the price of Roman peace. This is the cost of Roman order. This is Roman justice, perfect in its horror, eternal in its cruelty. The strongest civilization in history, measuring its strength in screams.